Welcome to today's video. So since it's February, since it's the month of love, we've got Valentine's Day around the corner, I thought I'd talk through some of my favourite romance books, give you guys some recommendations, and yeah, just have a little romance chit chat about my favourite book couples, my favourite tropes, just all things romance really. I'm going to start off with two that are actually set on Valentine's Day because that just seems very on brand right now. So the first one is The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. I loved this book when I read it. It was a book that really surprised me because it wasn't what I kind of thought it was going to be. So this follows three women and they're all waiting for their date on Valentine's Day. And their date is the same man. And he's not shown up for any of these dates. Nobody knows where he is or why he's dating three different women. This is just such a different romance read. It just feels very different to anything that I've read. I love Beth O'Leary's writing. It's so easy, it's so fast paced. It really just keeps you hooked because you just want to know what's going on. You want to know where he is and what's happening basically. And the way that this plot goes, I just really didn't see coming, which is one of the things that makes this book so memorable to me because it just completely caught me off guard. But I really enjoyed it and I definitely recommend, especially if you're looking for one that is set on Valentine's Day. The next one that's set on Valentine's Day I'm actually listening to on audiobook right now, but I thought I'd recommend it because I'm really enjoying it, and that is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. Lynn Painter's books just really remind me of a rom-com. They're literally everything you could want from a rom-com. They're funny, they're light-hearted, they're relatable. I just love them. There's also something so nostalgic about it because they're usually set in high school. And yeah, they're just so fun and easy to read. The Do-Over is set on Valentine's Day and it follows a girl who wants the most perfect Valentine's Day ever. She loves this occasion. She finds out something about her current boyfriend and she has the worst Valentine's Day ever. And she goes home, she goes to sleep, and then the next day she wakes up but it's Valentine's Day again. So she's stuck in this time loop and she keeps bumping into the same boy. Just gonna leave it at that. It's sort of like Groundhog Day, but in a YA romance. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. It's such a fun, light-hearted book. And while we're on the topic of Lynn Painter, there's another one that it just has a special place in my heart, and that is Better Than the Movies. This is definitely one for the rom-com lovers. It is such a cute book. This follows Liz, who is obsessed with rom-coms, and she's had this big crush on a guy called Michael, and she's trying to get him to ask her to prom so she can have the perfect happy ever after prom ending. And she lives next door to Wes, who she's grown up with, and he's always sort of teasing her, and he offers one day to help her get Michael to ask her to prom. So they end up spending a lot of time together and it's just such a cute read and it's literally got everything you could want from a rom-com. The thing that I also absolutely love about this book is the movie quotes at the beginning of every single chapter and how it sort of reflects on what's going to happen in the chapter. I just love that and I think it's so clever. And it's so nice to see something from movies that we know and that I've grown up with in a book. I just think that there's something so special about that. Another rom-com style book is 7 Exits by Lucy Vine. I never hear anybody talking about this, but I loved this book. This is one that I absolutely sped through just because it's so readable and it's just so good. It's funny, it's light-hearted, and it's just such an easy read. This follows Esther, who's navigating her life, and she comes across this magazine article that basically says that women date 7 people before they find the one, and she realises that she has 7 exes, so she thinks that the love of her life is going to be one of these 7. So it basically follows her trailing back through her exes and tracking them down, finding out where they are now and whether there's still like a romantic spark, whether they could be the one. And it's just such a fun read and it's not your typical romance. It's very much got a rom-com vibe, like it's really funny and it's very light-hearted. This also really reminds me of the film What's Your Number, which I love that film, so it's no surprise that I love this book as well. But if you like that movie, I think you're going to really like this as well. Moving on to some YA romances. The next one I'm going to recommend is definitely one for those that love more of a sad love story, more of a tragic love story. One of my personal favourite romances. I honestly think about this book daily and the two main characters honestly haven't left me since I stopped reading this book, and that is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. And I'm also going to throw in If Only I Told Her, which is the second one that's just come out. I actually finished reading this last night, but I would recommend both these books. I love them. You do have to read them in order, so you have to read If He Had Been With Me first, otherwise you're going to be quite lost in the second one. But this book honestly has a special place in my heart. I adore this book so much. So it's a YA high school romance and it's a friends to lovers romance as well. So it follows Autumn and Finney and they grew up together. Their mums are like best friends and they used to be inseparable, and then when it came to high school they sort of went their separate ways and sort of grew apart, and this basically follows them making their way back to each other and how they kind of always had feelings for each other the whole time. Now, I do hear a lot of people say that the first page of this, because there's a big event that happens on the first page, it kind of puts them off reading the rest. But what I will say is that don't let that put you off, because it is actually so much more than that, and it doesn't happen how you think it's going to happen. That's all I'm going to say. But don't let that put you off, because it's so worth a read. Laura Nowlin really captures that high school first love kind of feeling. There's definitely an element of soulmates in this, which I love that trope. The trope of them sort of being destined to be together, and everybody knows it, but they're not together for whatever reason. This book just feels very nostalgic, and one of the things that really stands out to me is the feeling of having a premonition is so well done in this book. I can't quite explain that feeling, but Laura Nowlin does it so well. The feeling of like something's not quite right, and Autumn has that feeling a lot, but it's not in a really obvious way, it's very subtle. But when you notice it, it's just done so beautifully, and it really gives the nostalgic vibe of this book. So this one is all from Autumn's perspective, and then the second one has 3 perspectives. So it has Finney's, it has Finn's best friend Jack's perspective, and it also has Autumn's at the end as well. I will just say check the trigger warnings, because it can deal with some quite hard topics. I absolutely loved both these books, and I honestly think that these characters I will be thinking about for the longest time. Next up we have another YA, but this time it's a fantasy, and that is Powerless. The way I cannot even explain the way I feel about this book. I just absolutely love it. I love it. I love this whole world. I love Kai. I love Payton. I love them together. I just really adore this book. It basically follows a world where everybody has powers, and those that don't have powers are called ordinaries, and they were banished from this kingdom. And Payton is an ordinary living in the kingdom, so she has to pretend that she has a power in order to survive. And these people with powers have the purging trials, where they basically all go into these trials and have to fight each other, and Payton ends up in these trials. But she is an ordinary, she has no power, and all these other people have powers. And one of these people is the son of the king, so he's the prince. So they're both in these trials together, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. This is one of the best enemies to lovers I have ever read. It's honestly one that I'm gonna be thinking about forever, and I cannot wait for the second book. I am so excited. I'm so excited. It's one of the ones as well which feels really special, because I absolutely love both characters individually, but I also really love them together, which I find isn't always the case for some romances. Like, you might not really be that fussed for them individually, but I am rooting for them individually, but also rooting for them to be together as well. I did a full vlog of reading this, so if you want to see my in-depth thoughts and everything, go and watch that. Let's just say that the ending really caught me off guard and I was literally speechless. I can't even think about the ending now, because I feel like I'll just... Exactly. Exactly. Moving on. The next one is another series that you've probably heard me talk about too much, but this is a series that has literally consumed my entire being. It's a series I think about every single day, and these characters honestly feel so real to me. This world feels like it exists to me, and that's Magnolia Parks. I'm recommending the whole series, so that's Daisy Hates as well, but I'm just going to start with Magnolia Parks because that's the first book. So this follows Magnolia Parks, who is a socialite in London, and it follows BJ, who's your typical bad boy vibe kind of character. And these two are basically destined to be together, and everybody knows it, but for whatever reason they just cannot find a way to work out to be together. But at the same time they can't stay away from each other. Like, they know that they are in love with each other this whole time, but things and life and people just get in the way of it. I will say it's very character driven, so if you don't like character driven books, this might not be for you. But the thing that is so special about this world is the characters and how they do genuinely seem so real. I honestly feel like I know them. I know what they look like, I know how they act, I know what they would say in certain situations. Like, I just feel like I know them, and that's what makes this series and this world so special. I also love how authentic these characters feel, and how they feel real because they are unlikable at times, but then you also love them, and you don't agree with what they're doing, but then sometimes you do, and they just feel like very real, well-rounded characters. It's very Chuck and Blair from Gossip Girl vibe, and it's also Made in Chelsea vibe, so if you mix them two together, it's like that. And then the last few recommendations are all spicy books. So all the ones I've mentioned so far have either little spice or no spice in them, and then the last 3 that I'm going to talk about all have spice in them. So the first one is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is one of my favourite second chance romances. I just love it. I love the whole vibe of this book. It's very summery and it's a real feel-good vibe. This follows Harry and Wyn, who were engaged but they're not anymore, and they go away on holiday with their group of friends, but their friends don't know that they've broken up. So they feel like they have to pretend to still be together because they don't want to upset their friends, and it's basically their last holiday together in this holiday home that they have always gone to. So it's kind of a special holiday and they don't want to ruin it by announcing that they're broken up. So we get to see how they met in the first place and how they got together, and then we also get to see their relationship and sort of the breakdown of their relationship and why they're not together anymore. And then we get the present timeline as well, which is where they're at right now, and them seeing if they can make it work and can make their way back to each other. I really loved Harry and Wyn together. I thought their story was so lovely and so heartwarming. But the other thing that I love about this book is that it's not just about romantic relationships. There is also quite a lot about the friendships and how friendships change and grow over time, and how their friendship group is kind of struggling with the changes and with it being different to how it's been before, and them kind of working out what the new normal is with how their lives are going at the minute, which I just think is really nice to see because it just feels more well-rounded in terms of it's not just looking at one type of relationship, it's looking at multiple, and I really liked reading about that in this book, and I think a lot of people can relate to that as well. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it if you want a feel-good romance read. And then the last two books I'm going to recommend are part of a series, and that's the Maple Hill series. So we have Icebreaker and Wildfire, both by Hannah Grace. Let's start with Icebreaker. Icebreaker follows Nate Hawkins and Anastasia Allen, and Nate is basically the captain of his ice hockey team and Anastasia is a figure skater. So basically the ice rink that Nate's team practices on is broken, so they have to share with Anastasia's ice rink, and Anastasia's not happy about this because it interrupts her practicing. I think this is also a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, so where she's grumpy and he's the sunshine. She's very standoffish with him. She doesn't really want anything to do with him or his team, and he's really intrigued by her and wants to know more and doesn't like that she doesn't like him, basically. This is also all set on a uni campus, so if you want that kind of uni vibe, this is definitely a good book for that because I just love being on this campus and in this world. And then the second book in the series is Wildfire. Now this happens in the summer, so this is based on the same group of friends, but it follows one in particular and it's off campus, so it's at a summer camp. This one follows Russ and Aurora, and they have a one night stand at uni and they think that they're never going to see each other again, and then they both go off for summer and they're both working at a summer camp, and it happens to be the same summer camp. But there's rules against staff getting together, so they have to respect the staff rules, but they can't stay away from each other. And it's got forced proximity in it because obviously they're working together and they have to be around each other all summer, and they get to know each other a bit more and they actually kind of start to like each other. And yeah, it's just a really cutesy summer romance. And I also love the vibe of the summer camp with the campfires and the s'mores and the cabins. I just really love that whole vibe. It's kind of like Camp Rock, but if Camp Rock was smutty. I'd recommend both of these. I'd recommend this whole series. There's another one coming out this year as well, which I'm so excited for. And yeah, I just really like this whole world, especially if you like more spicy books, then I definitely recommend these. So they're just some of my all-time favourite romance books, and hopefully I've given you some recommendations if you're a romance lover as well. Please let me know some of your favourite romances because I feel like I don't actually have that many on my TBR at the minute and I'd love to add some. So yeah, please let me know some of your favourite romances as well, and if you've read any of these and what you thought of them, I'd love to chat to you guys about it. And that's all for now, so thank you so much for watching this video and I will see you in my next one.